Upcoming regulatory reform, such as the 2021 LIBOR transition, will result in organisations having to make amendments to documents at scale. LIBOR reform could mean that there are hundreds of contracts and other documents within your organisation that require repapering. Each one must be located, updated, and managed for client outreach, as well as being stored for audit. If this process is done manually, you risk making errors. Contracts may get overlooked, inconsistencies will happen, and client outreach may not be a smooth experience. That can put you at risk of regulatory fines. It can also put strain on legal teams or consultancies who would otherwise be focused on the individual negotiations within the contracts. This is where ArcDS, the Automated Regulatory Compliance Document Solution, steps in. You can use this end-to-end solution to manage the LIBOR reform or any upcoming regulatory repapering. It breaks the process down into 5 simple automated steps. Step 1, discover and standardize. Step 2, classify and extract. Step 3, intelligent controls. Step 4, compose and verify. Step 5, store the finalized documentation. In this video, you'll see ArcDS in action as we take you through a demonstration of each of the 5 steps. Let's take a look at what happens in step 1. Discover and standardize. Step 1 identifies all your contracts across all your repositories and makes them fully text searchable. The first stage is to discover the contracts that we want to process with an e-discovery tool powered by AdLib. Now, these contracts and documents can be found in many different potential locations. The solution is agnostic to the storage location, so we'll find things from your local or network folders, from SharePoint, from cloud storage, from an EDMS or ECM system, whether modern or legacy, from emails, or from a combination of these places, plus many other locations too. So in this view, you can see that the system has already gone out and done a discovery, and it has located a total of 77 files that it wants to process. It wants to see if they're contracts, check what the contract is, and so forth. The first thing it's done is show the files created by year. It's broken all the files it has located by their creation date and displayed them in this graph. So if you wanted to only process the files that were created in 2015, you can very easily do that by drilling down into the graph, as you can see here. It has also looked at the last modified date. So similarly, if you only want to look at and process files that were last modified in 2017, you just need to click into the graph to do that. The system has also looked at each of the files in turn and identified the file type of the contract. It hasn't done that by simply looking at the file extension, it's more intelligent, and has opened the header of each file and identified the file type on a case-by-case basis. So you can see here in the graph on the bottom left that it has identified that 42 of the files that were found are PDF documents. 21 of them are word processing documents, and that could be Microsoft Word or WordPerfect if they are old legacy files, basically any type of word processing file. And we've also found that 14 of the files are images. So perhaps those images are scanned images, or they're TIFFs or JPEGs, BNP files, PNGs, and the list goes on. This is important because we can also drill down into the contracts by file type. As I click on the graph, you can see most of the word processing files were created by Word 2007, but this one here was made by Word 97. This is important so we can get the highest accuracy when we're processing these files and standardizing them for later processing. We'll go into a bit more detail about that in a moment. The other thing the system has done is look at the files and identify that 76 of them are unique out of the 77, but one of them is in fact a duplicate. By default, we don't want to process duplicate files, so the system has automatically excluded this duplicate file, and we will only process the original version. It'll stop us processing multiple versions of exactly the same contract. So the next stage is that the files will be automatically standardized. This is to facilitate the intelligent processing of contracts. So all of these different file types will be standardized into one single file format, so they can easily be managed at the next step. Everything we've seen so far can be done automatically, so no user intervention is necessary. Once all the contracts are standardized, it goes straight to the next step. Step 2, classify and extract. Step 2 organizes your contracts based on the metadata extracted to give you a complete scope of the required LIBOR replacements. In Step 2, all documents are passed through an artificial intelligence and machine learning engine, which has been trained specifically to find different types of contracts. You can see here that contracts have been assigned a document type by the AI engine. These document types or categories are user definable, so you can use terms or structures that are familiar to you. You can see that these contracts are being assigned as credit agreement, amended agreement, and consolidated financial statement. Any documents that the AI engine has low confidence in during the classification stage are sent to the verification tab, where the assignment can be checked, corrected if necessary, and the AI engine is retrained to improve recognition in the future. Once a document has been classified, it will automatically move to the metadata extraction phase. Depending on the contract type, key information can be identified. This can be things such as the effective date, the parties involved, and whether a LIBOR clause is present within the document. Here, for example, you can see that LIBOR is referenced in all of the contracts, but this could also be used to flag up the inclusion of other terms, such as force majeure or perhaps exclusions relating to pandemics. If we drill down into an individual document, you will immediately see that the extracted terms have been highlighted. Jumping forward in that document, you can see an entire clause has been identified within the document and extracted. On the right-hand side, you can see all of the extracted information from this contract. You can also see all of the metadata that has been gathered by the solution during the discovery, standardization, classification, and extraction phases. Now that we have extracted all of this information from each contract, the documents, along with all the metadata and properties, are automatically pushed through to the next stage in the process. As ever, all of the processing just described can be done automatically and doesn't require any human intervention. Step 3, intelligent controls. Custom workflows are deployed to manage each case review. You can split them into simple and complex cases to ensure your focus is where it needs to be. In Step 3, now that we've discovered, classified, and extracted all the content we need, it's time to apply some intelligent control. Everything we've seen so far from the eDiscovery tool is automatically fed into the M-Files information management platform, along with all of the relevant metadata. Then, based on pre-configured rules, individuals or teams can be notified of new content, as we can see here in the Notifications and Assignments area. This is how you distribute the tasks associated with the repapering. When you click into an individual assignment, not only do you get instructions on what to do, but you can also see the metadata that has been extracted or preview the document without having to open it. With the predetermined controls, permissions for each document can be set automatically. They can be processed through complex verification and authorization workflows if necessary. From this point, it's easy for users to activate each assignment and start moving documents through the repapering steps. This content is not only visible to internal users. Should you need to collaborate with external parties or customers, you can through advanced collaboration tools. You can share links to or send copies of the documents easily and securely, or even collaborate through a portal, both the M-Files portal or a third-party one. Each step of the way, the system ensures your compliance through automatic version control and a full audit trail. Step 4, compose and verify. In Step 4, ArcDS creates integrated documents with the LIBOR replacements, with standardization of content and clauses. You can control all the required internal reviews before it's sent for client review. Step 4 of the process is powered by HotDocs Advance to deliver out-of-the-box document creation. Through manual or automatic metadata analysis, users can create new contracts or agreements with a simple user interface. Here you can see we are creating a new credit agreement. With the advanced permissions we talked about earlier, you can be sure that only the users with relevant access can create new content. At the moment, we're showing you a manual creation, but the system integrates with your line of business applications, so you can be certain you're using the most up-to-date information, removing the risk of incorrect data being entered. What's happening in the background is that a pre-configured template is being used, so the replacement contracts will be standardized and have all the correct clauses. Once the new contracts exist, they are passed back to M-Files with all the metadata attached. Step 5. Store the finalized documentation. Prior to sending to the client, you can validate the results and review any exceptions. ArcDS manages the client outreach process, so sending for review and attaining signatures is painless. All documents are safely and correctly stored, facilitating any audits needed in the future, or just makes it easier to be found for reference. As we go into step 5, we can see again the notifications and assignments bar has some user tasks. We can also still see all the metadata, information, and a preview for that document. All the iterations of a particular contract that have existed so far are stored together. They're linked to metadata information like the client name or the caseworker, and you can search for documents using these or any other metadata criteria. You can also see them in views of how far they are through the repapering process. If it turns out that further legal or internal reviews are required before a contract can go for client outreach, this can be handled with the workflow and collaboration tools. The integration options are virtually endless, so you can manage these processes within M-Files or with your preferred line of business applications. Once everything is correct and finalized on the new contract, it's signed by the internal party and sent to the client with instructions on what to do. The client outreach can be managed through M-Files or a different client outreach tool, such as a client portal of your choosing. Once the client is signed with an e-signature tool, such as DocuSign or Adobe Sign, the document is automatically received back. If there are any issues at this point, they can be highlighted to the caseworker. And there you have it, the original contract with a LIBOR clause stored with a brand new signed contract with the correct clause. You have full visibility over the number of documents being managed, where they all are in the process, and who has interacted with them along the way. With ArcDS's complete regulatory reform solution, you can reduce the workload for your legal teams and consultants, ensure you meet the LIBOR 2021 deadline, avoid non-compliance and hefty fines, whilst also ensuring your client's experience in this transition is smooth. And if another regulatory repapering event comes along, all your contracts are ready and waiting to be actioned. Why not reach out and discover what ArcDS can do for your organization?